Okay, we're live.
We are live.
Hey, everybody. Greetings from Qatar.
And greetings from Telluride. We will just allow a minute or two here for folks to dial in, and then we'll get started. Numbers over there.
Just 17.
Yeah. Okay, we'll get started. Thank you all for calling in. We held one of these Q&A sessions maybe 2-3 weeks ago, but we find that they're always very helpful for folks that are in the application process or are just trying to have a few questions answered to decide whether they're going to apply, or they've applied and they still have a few questions. So we're going to leave a bunch of time at the end for questions, but we also wanted to give just a quick overview for those of you who are less familiar with TVA, sort of on our history, where we are now, our track record, and specifically on the program. And to introduce, my name is Jesse Johnson. I'm the founder of TVA. Along with me is Thea Chase, who's the director of TVA. And also here to my left is Ashley Nogger, who's the program manager and who's doing all the technology there. So to start off with, I think it's probably most helpful to describe how the feedback we've gotten from companies that have come through, our mentors, other people we've interacted with, what really makes the Telluride Venture Accelerator unique. And we are entering our 4th year now. We've had roughly 18 companies come through our program. And so we have a pretty good sense of where our strengths lie. And I'd say first and foremost, it's about the mentor interaction. And we hear this time and time again from our companies who participate, and also from our mentors who have experience in other programs, that by virtue of where we are, Telluride, which if you're not familiar is we're around 9,000 feet in southwestern Colorado. Box Canyon, there's literally only one road in, one road out. 13 and 14,000 foot peaks surrounding us. It is an incredibly beautiful, inspiring place, and it attracts an incredibly interesting and passionate group of people here. And we find, again, time and time again, that we have world-class mentors in our program that we feel rival any program in the country. But I think one big difference is when they're here in Telluride, they're unplugged from their work. They're here to go on hikes. They're here to ski. They're here to spend time with family and friends and relax in a place that inspires them, and that they're not, running home after work at 5 o'clock to have a quick coffee with you for 10 minutes on their way home, feeling stressed and having other things on their mind. So again, we have mentors or companies that are here that tell stories of, meeting up with mentors on the chairlift, literally going skiing, coming over to their house for coffee, going hiking. There is just the opportunity for those sort of interactions in this program, which we believe is very unique. So while we feel like we have great mentors, a lot of programs have great mentors, but we feel that interaction and that quality of time that you have with those people is really unique here. So that's the first point that, again, we've been told that that's unique about our program. 2 is our funding. We have a great track record for getting companies funded, which is obviously what, if you're a startup, that's what it's all about, is getting your vision, down on paper as a business and off and running funded. So just some stats there. With our 18 companies that have been in our community, we've raised about $9 million for that group now. The Global Accelerator Network, GAN, of which we're a member, they sort of hold up as a successful accelerator is one that can raise over $300,000 for 30% or more of its graduates 1 year out. And we're right now double that. We're, I think, about 68% of our companies have been funded higher than 300,000. I think our average is around 550,000. And we also have, each year we have, last year we had 2, I think the year before we had 2 companies that are funded literally within 24, 48 hours of our demo day, which last year took place July 1. So, you know, there's investors watching companies that come through TVA. There's a local venture fund, Telluride Venture Fund, that has invested in probably 60% of the companies that have come through. And there's a great network of investors. So those are some of the big picture themes I just wanted to share. Quickly on the history, we are a nonprofit. A lot of accelerators are for-profits. We are partnered with our local community foundation, the Telluride Foundation, and that really gives us a great entree into the community, to this community of mentors, because when they show up to help our businesses, they're giving back to the community essentially. You know, there's no you know, thought of a financial gain in there. They're literally giving of their time. We're not asking them to write a check for any reason. They're showing up to support the companies and support this effort. And there is a great momentum right now in this community around TVA, a lot of goodwill. But we started it because Telluride is a small town that is totally dependent on travel, tourism, housing starts, skiing, snowfall. And we saw that there's a really talented pool of mentors and entrepreneurs who come through this community, but there was no glue, you know, sticking them together. And TVA has become that. So we now have roughly 90 mentors, people from all over the country, all different backgrounds, who now, when they're in Telluride, they're connecting on entrepreneurship and on, you know, their passions, whatever they may be, and they're showing up here in our offices up in the Mountain Village to share their stories with our companies and with our entrepreneurs. I should just say, so that everyone hears it, the verticals that we focus on, while we focus on technology solutions and services, we believe our greatest strength lies in the areas of outdoor rec, travel tourism, health wellness, and a new category this year we're talking about, which is natural resource management. In the past, we've had water, energy, and a few others in there. We've sort of packaged those together under natural resource management. It is worth saying that in the past, we've called out education. We still have a focus on education, and we still have a lot of great mentors in that area. We're just going to fold that into sort of health and wellness as a larger category. And then the only other big picture item which you obviously need to get to understand in this is that we're taking 5% equity in your company for $30,000. In the past, we've sort of done $25,000 for equity and $5,000 for travel and lodging. It was confusing, so we just had put it all together for $30,000. So, Thea, why don't I turn it to you to talk a bit about the specifics of the program and what they'd all expect here.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jesse. As Jesse was mentioning, really, it's the mentors that make our program extraordinary. And we engage those mentors with you from day one, you know, actually from like the time that we start the selection process. So the applications close on the 16th of October. And at that point, we start our whole process of sifting through those and getting mentors engaged with looking at the companies. That's a lot of behind the scenes work. And I guess why that matters to you is by the time that you get to TVA, if you're accepted into the program, the mentors know, you know, quite a few of the mentors know quite a little bit about you because they've been involved in the due diligence process. They've been screening applications all along, and they're a very active group. So our curriculum essentially, and I hate to call it curriculum, but I guess it has a cadence. We do focus and use the lean launch curriculum. So we do use tools like the business model canvas to help people go through the whole iteration process so that they can get to the best product market fit. Now, many of you are really familiar with that process already. You've maybe built canvases, that's great. It's also a tool to get mentor engagement. So when they're able to kind of look at your business model in a comprehensive manner, it becomes a lot better tool for them to really engage with you. And so it's a tool in a lot of ways. We spent the first third of our time together really in this process of hypothesis testing and accessing the networks that are so rich as a part of the mentors and as a extension of what the mentors can offer. We then go into more of building the company. So once you get to the point where, yeah, the model makes sense. It's the best iteration that we could get to. Then it's about building some of the guts of the offer, and really we want to have companies that are launching, are ready to launch, are able to really to prove to investors at demo day that it's not just a story, it's real. There's traction behind the assumptions that you've made, and you've actually made some moves towards actually making it happen. So, financials and other due diligence docs around what your team needs to look like, what's your startup capital, how you would expend your funds, what's your burn rate, all those kinds of things are things that we spend time with you on. We have a lot of mentors that are both specialty mentors and that are general mentors, strategic mentors that can help you kind of through that process. And then the end of the program, we're really getting you ready for the pitch. I mean, whether that pitch is to sell your product, build partnerships, and raise money, all of it is about being able to articulate the value propositions that you have, and how the individuals that you're talking to might fit into the whole picture. The first couple of weeks of TVA is very intense. It's a boot camp, and we try to get at least about a third of our mentor pool actually physically here during that time, so that you can meet them, you can talk to them, you can kind of test out and see which mentors you really have a good relationship with, and you feel that are ones that would be part of your advisory group for the rest of the time that you're with us. So essentially that's what we're doing with our curriculum or our time together. I think from there maybe we could launch into your time at Telluride, and Jesse, jump in on this. And Ashley, Telluride, welcomes the TVA. I mean, this is a big deal. So, the community is incredibly welcoming. And if you didn't get to see the mentor podcast or the mentor webinar that was done a couple weeks ago, I think it's still available online. It's in one of our blogs. You can look into that. But Ann Brown, one of our mentors, was really commenting on that, and she was just saying, hey, when the TVA companies come to town, they're really welcome with open arms. And everything from, as Jesse mentioned, the kind of special access that you get, but then also access to the various companies and the connections within Telluride to do any kind of testing or pilot testing or any kind of interviews that you might want to have.
Yeah.
Do we want to jump into some questions, some specific questions at this point?
Yeah, unless you had any other thoughts.
Well, one I just wanted to mention, which is one we do get asked a lot, which is how does the application process work? How do we review, and what's the general timeline? So to touch on that, for those of you who start an application, it's an online process. It's not a business plan. It's short, concise questions and answers with 2 videos. And we do it that way because our mentors are essentially the readers. Our community of 90 mentors are each assigned, say, 5 companies, and we try to have like 6 to 7 at least readers per applicant. So it's being looked at by a wide range of folks. And we go through 3 or 4 iterations. So everyone gets read at first, and we narrow down to ones that got particularly high marks, and we do it again. We go through 2 or 3 phases of that, and then the staff of TVA all huddles up. If there's further questions to be asked of the applicants, we will then put those out to the applicants for further probing in specific topics or questions, intellectual property or whatever it might be. We usually get it down to 20 or so, and we have a series of short conversations, literally like 10, 15-minute conversations, just to get a sense of you, your team, your idea. And then if it progresses past that, we usually try to do in-person interviews. This is now, we're talking in very late November, early December. In-person interviews wherever available. If not, we have done Skype. We do feel it's in the applicant's best interest to be present if possible, but we understand that that's tough for some. And then we plan on announcing the finalists right around December 10th or so, right, Thea?
Yeah, that's about right. Yep. So yeah, though that's a good segue to some of the questions. You know, the selection process is extremely complex and time consuming, and I guess, you know, really, as Jesse mentioned, the verticals that we choose are really meant, are chosen because of the areas that we feel like we can really add value to the companies. And so that's the selection process also, is that we're really trying to see if it's the right match. I mean, you know, it's a financial investment that we make, but it's also, we spend a lot of time together and we bring a lot of resources to the table to help companies. So we just want to make sure that that it's a good match from the beginning.
Great.
You want to point out one?
Yeah, we're gonna start answering your guys' questions. And for those of you who are curious how to ask a question, there's a red button at the bottom of the screen that says ask a question or suggest a topic. So please feel free to either suggest a topic you want to hear about or ask one of your questions. So I'm gonna start actually from the bottom and work my way up. So the first question is, how would this be implemented for ongoing business? And I don't know if you or Thea want to jump into that question that's asked by William.
Well, I can give you the, you know, kind of our specs as far as that goes. You know, we look at companies from the idea stage all the way to $1 million in sales, and we've had every point in between that, right? So we had, you know, one company the first year had about what, 600,000 in sales, Jesse?
Yeah.
And then last year, you know, certainly we had a company that was purely at the idea stage. The year before, we had a company that was purely at the idea stage. So, you know, and so how does that work? Well, I really firmly believe that accelerators have a place in even corporate America. I mean, the whole process of iterating around your business model and developing these relationships with these mentors and moving that down the road towards really getting to the best business model that you can have to launch your new product or your company is not something that gets stale. And a lot of this type of methodology has been instituted into a lot of corporations, large corporations throughout the world. But having said that, I mean, you know, I know it's complicated, and we get this question a lot. Like, if you have sales, like let's say you have a facility that, you know, that you're operating in some other part of the country or some other country even. It's difficult to leave that. But I know in the first year we had one founder who came from Maine, and his partner stayed back and was able to run the manufacturing company. And the amount of value that he got out of being in Telluride and being part of TVA was huge. And it led to a very successful Series A round, you know. So I know there's not an exact answer here, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is that it's relevant. If you believe that it's important for your company, I mean, you have to obviously look at what you think you need in order to advance your company. But we've had examples from all over the place.
Great. Going into the next one, so I'm just going to answer. I commented on Julie's question. It is one video with 2 parts. So last year we had 2 separate videos, and we this year have made it be one video with 2 parts, one talking about your team and then one talking about your product or your idea company. So that's kind of the video part of it.
Yeah, and if I could just say, I mean, I think, do we put a time? We put a time on it.
Yeah, it's I believe 1 minute, 30 seconds, or 2 minutes, 60 seconds on the first one, and then 60 seconds.
Yeah, they're very short, concise videos. We really don't care about quality. It can literally be shot on your iPhone. Many of our applicants in the past that have been successful have done it that way. But it is a very important part of the application. In our understanding, our mentors that are looking at these applications, just to get a quick read to understand how much effort to put into this application, the first thing they look at is the videos, and they get a sense of who's the entrepreneur or who's the team, and how concise and can they explain their idea and the market they're targeting. So while the quality doesn't matter, certainly your presentation does, and the content of your video does.
Great.
Yeah, and then they get a sense for who you are. and who your team is. So personality-wise too, I mean, it's really difficult to look at a static application, a bunch of questions and answers, and really get a sense for who the people are. And really, team is the most important thing to us. We place a huge emphasis on that, and the founders. And so, we put a lot of energy there as well. I mean, part of our curriculum is this whole notion of leadership development, and we've understood that from the beginning that that really it relies on the founders to be able to carry this thing forward. And so we put a lot of energy there, and that's what the selection committee looks at as well.
Yes.
Yeah,
so the next question is, saw last year you organized road shows to Boulder and San Francisco, and that means we take our demo day on the road. We do one in here in Telluride, as well as last year we did one in Denver and San Francisco, just trying to get you in touch with as many investors in those areas as well. So I'm gonna start answering that one. I don't know, Jesse, Thea, if you want to jump in on those as well.
Yeah, this is something the first year we did not do this. We just did Telluride. The second year, and then last year we added on these sort of satellite road shows up to Boulder, Denver, and then out to the West Coast. And we found generally that they've been additive to our companies. They've, great connections, some investor introductions. So the plan right now is to continue that. And we've had great partners with Galvanize, and we've got a strong track record so far of getting, for those companies who are interested, meetings with Foundry Group. Brad Feld was here last year at our demo day and kindly met with all of our companies, and as his mantra is, he felt he had to help in some way with each company. And then we've had a good track record on the West Coast with one of our mentors is with Andreessen Horowitz, and he's been helpful in the past in either finding people within the company, within their investment firm that can help, not necessarily invest, but to help, or networking around the area for investors who might be interested. So yes, the plan is to do that again, and that would be the week after demo day, our demo day here. So everything would be done by mid-July.
Mm-hmm.
We also do a live stream of demo day, so we get some more people that are watching remotely. So I think we were at around 280 last year if you added them all together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There was one question I'll just take about international applicants, and I know there's at least one person online from India. We have taken international applicants in the past, and we do take international applicants. We have yet to have a participating company be an international company. Maine's pretty close, but but we did have someone that was in the final 20 last year that we were considering from Australia. On business grounds, they weren't in the final group. But certainly, if we had an international applicant who met all our criteria, we're open to it, and we do that. We know that there's an additional hurdle on visas and things, but we have a good contacts to the Global Accelerator Network to be able to help on that. So please apply.
Yes.
Yeah, please apply.
Would you tell us more about the relocation process and housing for those of us that are not in Colorado?
Okay, so we have a staff person at the Telluride Foundation who last year was incredibly helpful to the people that were looking for housing, and I think that was the big difference between last year and the year before. The year before, we really left that up to the companies to figure out, and it was a little bit frustrating. And it is a small community. It is a challenging housing market, but there is housing to be found. So this individual that's with the foundation, she's literally checking everything now, and she's just keeping tabs on what's available. And she works with anybody that's that's going to be relocating to Telluride to try to make that as seamless as possible. And then, of course, Ashley and myself, we really work on trying to make sure that your onboarding process is smooth, and that you can that you can relocate here, and that you're as comfortably as possible.
Yeah.
Anything to add there, Jesse? I mean, it's.
No,
It's,
I mean,
you know,
that's
housing
really-
is tough. It's a small community.
Yeah, housing is tricky, and prices are what you'd expect in a place like Boulder, just
Yeah,
a small area. First year we sort of just let it happen organically and let the companies figure it out, and it's tricky being outside of Telluride. Second year we brought on some assistance from Telluride Foundation, and maybe it was the third year, but it worked a lot more smoothly. We have supporters of the Telluride Foundation who have a back house who were saying, okay, you could stay here for really reduced rents. We helped sort of put some teams together, to explore some housing.
Right.
So we've gotten much more proactive, and therefore it's gotten easier, but it's certainly not easy. It does require some time once you are accepted to either come visit or connect with the person at the Telluride Foundation and sort of triangulate towards the solution.
Mm-hmm. Great. I'm going to go to another question. Are you interested in early stage companies?
Well, yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think, that we talked about that a little bit before. Early stage companies are really, I think, there's something that we do really well with. I think that the mentors are excited about it. I mean, everybody's really excited about it. Obviously, we look really closely at the space that you're trying to occupy and what your team looks like, your capability of actually building something. I mean, especially if it doesn't exist right now and you haven't, and you really haven't done much to build it. But you should think about trying to get some kind of traction or validation prior to the application in the sense of, it might be one thing that this is an idea that you think is great. I mean, how can you communicate to the selection committee that you have the capability of doing what you want to do, and that also there's some outside validation that of people that know something about this industry or somehow are somewhat objective that can help to strengthen your application. And one of the questions that came through about recommendations, I might touch on that at this point. A recommendation in that case that would be very helpful would be potentially somebody that that knows something about this industry, that has some credibility in the industry, that could say, yes, this is an area that's really of interest. There's some space there. What they plan to differentiate themselves with is something that has some palatability from a demand perspective, and then some other recommendations might deal with you and your co-founders as team members and both your technical talent and your leadership ability.
Yes, good answer.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add to that is the thing the mentors and we will be looking at in the review process for a very early stage company, like literally an idea, which we've taken before, is this the team to do this? How well do they know their market? And specifically, from February through July, how much traction are they realistically going to be able to get? We had 2 female founders, a company called Fresh Monster, who came in 2 years ago. They had tons of experience in their industry, but literally the company hadn't been incorporated yet. It was a business plan, but they went from where they started with just an idea to basically having all product done, all production partners done, being ready to fill shelves. So they made a ton of progress in the program. And that, I think, is really what's going to make the difference for investors on demo day. So that they knew where you were when you entered. They see again, a polished presentation in July, and they can make the connection that this is a team that not only knows their market, but can get stuff done.
Right.
Yeah. There was a question asked, could you tell a little bit more about your partnership with Cooley, incorporation, ongoing counsel, etc.?
Well, I'll start and then you can jump in, Jesse. Cooley's been a fabulous partner with us. I guess we started that relationship about 1.5 years ago, so it was midway through the 2014 cohort, I think. We have one of the partners from Cooley that's located over in Longmont, and and she comes over and spends time with the teams, both in kind of a workshop environment and then also on one-on-one. We also have some of the rainmakers from Cooley who just know everybody and are all about connecting you to whomever you need to be connected with, that are really integral in doing just that. And then we have another partner that actually lives in Telluride. So we have a real strong connection with Cooley. They've been a sponsor now for 2 years. And they also offer a kind of special price for incorporation and some of the initial work that would that you could have done. We have relationships with other law firms as well. I mean, so choosing a law firm is a complicated situation, and Cooley's certainly not the only law firm that we put in front of you, but we do have an excellent relationship with them that has been very fruitful for a lot of the companies.
Great. Did you want to add anything?
Well, yeah, similar to that on Cooley and some of our other sponsorships, and we do get a number of benefits through being a GAN member accelerator. In the past, we've had a great one with PayPal. That's been put on pause while the eBay PayPal spinoff. We're hoping to get it back, but it's a meaningful credit through PayPal. We have, we've had great help from an intellectual property lawyer, Paul Tomita, who has helped a lot of our companies who have IP-related questions to understand sort of what they have and what they need to document in order to secure their ideas. So yeah, and then I can say that at the end of this, we will provide emails for us if there's further questions. So if your question doesn't get answered or you have a follow-up, please, we'll give you our email and you can follow it that way.
Right.
I'll put it in chat.
Yep.
Along that question, just the Victor, regarding your H-1B, the H-1B sponsorship, the question was, would you sponsor H-1B visa if accepted as an international startup? I don't know the details of the H-1B visa off the top of my head, so I'd love to connect with you offline regarding that topic.
Yeah, and there are other GAN members that have, GAN is the Global Accelerator Network, and we've been a member of GAN since the beginning of the program. And this is something that, we work with GAN, other members to kind of brainstorm on how best to achieve that. So the H-1B visa, is something that has, that accelerators have acted as sponsors for before. So we know it's possible. We just, we haven't done it yet.
Right. But would be happy to connect with you offline on that.
Yeah.
Another question is, what is your position on the sole founder?
Yeah, so Thea probably has thoughts too, but it's one that's asked across a lot of accelerators. And to date, we've sort of towed the party line, so to speak, with the Global Accelerator Network, in that it's proven out over time that if you have a team, there's a higher chance of success. Having a partner in the process, having someone to bounce ideas off of, not overwhelming your husband or wife or your partner with work-related things. We have taken sole founders in the past, but it is the exception for us. Just because we know that it's an intense program while you're here. There's tons of things going on, and it's kind of like being in a mini MBA program. There's more than you can take advantage of. So you have to prioritize, and you have to do what's right for your company. And if you have someone on your team sitting next to you, helping you prioritize or dividing and conquering, your chances of getting more out of this program increase. So our bias is certainly towards teams that complement each other well, but we have taken sole founders.
Yes. Other question. There's still problems with recommendations. I have one more person attempts to enter info into F-Success and it isn't working properly. I haven't heard of any other. This is only the second time I've heard about this problem. I was understanding that it was kind of resolved, but if you want to have that person who's having a problem with F-Success email me their recommendation, I can add it in manually. So I'll give you my email address at the end of this, and you can just have them send their recommendation directly to me, if that will work. Another question that we have submitted is, are we able to use the 30K for housing? No, if you want to comment on that.
Yeah, well, we can, the 30K, and actually somebody asked about disbursement. we disperse the first third of the funding upon signing of the contract. So that will happen before you actually arrive in Telluride. And then the next disbursement comes in February and the next one in March. So I believe it's like the beginning of February and the beginning of March, and like during the beginning of it. So, you get the money pretty early on, and it's up to you how you use those funds.
Yeah, I would echo Thea that it's really, your decision how you use those investment dollars. Obviously, some will have to be used for housing and travel. People are going to be looking at how you did use those funds. So, did it all go towards housing, or did it actually go towards building something and getting to a place where you're closer to revenue or knowing your market? So certainly, we don't put any constraints on those use of funds. You can do nothing and sit here for 5 months, but you won't get funded.
The only thing I'd add to that is that don't run out of money while you're here. I mean, it's really challenging if you find yourself in a situation at month 4 that you need to raise money before demo day. That's really challenging, and that's when potentially you could, but you would be heavily scrutinized as to why you didn't really anticipate what you needed and manage your funds in such a way that you were caught off guard. I mean, that's kind of the only situation I've seen where it was potentially looked at pretty heavily how you used your funds.
Great. This other one I answered via the comment, but this webinar is recorded, and I will send it out to you all, and anyone who has showed interest. There will be a link to this video of the webinar for later consumption. Does anybody else have any other questions or topics that you'd like us to touch on? We'll kind of hang out here for a little bit and see if any others come in. If there's any topics that we haven't necessarily touched on.
There's a few that come to mind that are often asked, if not by email or these sessions during the application process. And one is, some of our materials talk about how we, part of our mission is to bring more businesses to Telluride and to our region. Just worth commenting that it's not mandatory that you are considering moving your business from wherever you are now or to Telluride or our region. However, if your business is the type of business that can run from here and you have interest, we will do everything we can, roll out the red carpet to try to keep you in this community. We had one of our companies last year who is down in Montrose, Colorado, which is a roughly hour drive. He's got a lot of vets that he employs down there, and he spends a lot of time up here. We had each year we've actually had a Telluride-based company that has applied, and same criteria, met the criteria and been a finalist. So it gets a lot of people in the community excited, the idea of bringing some really cutting edge, high growth companies to the region, but it's not essential that you stay here in our region.
Great.
So one thing I guess I'd like to comment on is a lot of times people are curious, how do they get in touch with the mentors, or how does that relationship look? So I thought I'd comment a little bit about that. As Jesse mentioned earlier, we have approximately 90 now mentors, and these are world-class mentors. I mean, they're people with absolutely phenomenal backgrounds. And each year, they're doing different things. Maybe they're doing another startup, or maybe they have more time. So from year to year, we kind of try to get a sense from them as to what their obligations are and what their time availability is going to be. And so we stay in contact with them really year round. And right now we're getting some feedback from them as to whether they're available to help us during the selection process. And we've already got several entrepreneurs and residents that we're going to be bringing in during the 2016 cohort that we've kind of already nailed down in terms of when they'd be here. Because I mean, their schedules are so kind of finalized in advance that we've just reserved time with them already. And so it's a variety of ways. Like As I mentioned, during boot camp, we try to get as many in as possible. That could be for kind of a panel discussion, or maybe a workshop that they want to do, or maybe they come in and do what we call a mentor short chat, where they come in and they, introduce themselves, spend a little bit of time talking about their background, anything that they particularly want to focus on. And then they just do Q&A with everybody, and then potentially then also stick around and do some one-on-one time with all of the teams. So we have kind of office hours set up, and so we try to get the mentors, or get you matched with a couple of mentors that we know that you're going to have a relationship with and work with the entire time. But that's not necessary. Oftentimes that kind of happens a little bit organically, and we really troubleshoot to see, okay, this is where you are now, this is what you need, this is what you need to know, and we brainstorm around who we think would be most helpful for you, and then we get you in touch with them. And so from that point, it could be anything from, an email exchange, to a phone call, to a meeting, to a weekly meeting. I mean, it really varies in terms of the level of engagement based on kind of what you need, what your requirements are, what their needs are in terms of what kind of time frame they might have available, or time commitment they can make. And so it really varies quite a bit. But as Jesse mentioned before, when they're here and they're engaged, they're engaged. I mean, they're not on their way somewhere. They're really very present and very engaged.
Great. We had one question submitted. Can we send you a canvas to see if we can be a potential fit before we apply?
I'd love to say yes, but I don't think I can. I mean, that's just tough for us at this point. It really is. I think, we'd be happy to answer an email or something if you've got a specific question, or type it in now and maybe we can help you out. But it's just not realistic for us to really be looking at canvases at this point. And I don't know specifically what your question is. If you're concerned about if you fit within our verticals, I can understand that. That might be something that you just kind of zip off a question and see if we can give you an idea of what we think as far as that goes. But I just don't see us having the capacity to look at canvases at this point.
Yeah, it's also worth noting that the platform that we use for applications, F6S, is the platform for many accelerators around the US and around the world. So you're able to, should you start an application and decide not to finish it, or should you apply and not get accepted, that content is still on that platform and can be used for other accelerators.
Right.
One thing I thought I would just touch on, one of the unsaid things with the Telluride Venture Accelerator is that we are in Telluride and in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado. So, we've had a beautiful blue sky fall, and we've got snow that came last night up above 12,000 feet or so. But this is a special place, and people quickly fall in love with it. Usually, just driving into the valley and they see the mountains. The opportunity, certainly, where you are about working hard and getting your business going and accelerating your company. But there's also opportunities here to, we have some ski passes that we circulate around the community, so that, if you want to go meet a mentor and go skiing one morning, ideally it's a powder morning. We stretch across a couple different seasons here because we want to maximize that time with mentors. So we have the ski season, which is really probably the busiest time, that February-March period, where anyone who has a relationship with Telluride, certainly has a home here, is here then. So you get to spend time with them then. And then that sort of late May, June period is another period where all the hiking is opening up, camping is opening up, the wildflowers are out, and people are out enjoying the outdoors. And so you're in here working hard, same as you would anywhere else. But when you walk out of here, you've got incredible mountain biking trails, camping, within, just a few miles, world-class skiing, ice climbing. It's pretty endless. And it's
yeah, and you know, yeah.
different for us.
Mm-hmm.
I think the you know, Kristen Ogden, who you'll see if you just keep watching our website. She did a podcast, an audio panel actually with a couple of our mentors this last week, and it should be up on Friday or so. And with Gordon Seabury and Ross Saldarini, who are two just very well known startup guys in the outdoor industry. And she was really talking about it. I think she described it super well. It's like, you know, you really, it's she's got a company called Living Uber. It's kind of fun, but she's got one of the most well-respected public relations firms in the outdoor space, and she really understands that kind of balance, that, you know, or maybe, I guess balance is not the popular word to use anymore, right? But it's more about just what kind of a feeling you get when you're in Telluride, and the creativity that comes along with that. And it is infectious. You know, our mentors feel it. That's, you know, they love it. They love coming there, and really, it's a very creative place. And you know, we work hard and we play hard, and we, you know, we have mentors that come in their ski boots, and they sit down and they chat for a while, and they, you know, go look at your canvas and chat for a while, and they go back on the slopes, you know, and we have these gondola moments where you're riding up in the gondola, and you come running in afterwards. You go, oh my gosh, you never believe who I just met, you know. And there's just like, it's funny, but that happens all the time here. And so we, you know, we're not complacent about it. We're just comfortable with it. You know, it's a great place. People come here. They come here for the outdoors, for the recreation, but they also come here for kind of the place that it is. And it's a great place. It's a great place to start. It's a great place to be creative and really give yourself the time to create something great.
Yeah. Great. Well, if you guys don't have any other topics, I have in the chat window of this platform, I've included my email as well as Thea and Jesse's email. So if you have any questions and want to follow up with us outside of the webinar, please feel free to email any questions you might have. And as Thea said, please continue to watch our website. We do have a couple more, well, a lot more blog posts, and definitely that audio panel with Kristen that is going to be coming out shortly. Just a reminder that October 16th is the deadline to apply. So if your application is currently in progress, just know that you have until the end of day on the, I think it's 7 p.m. on the 16th to get your application in. So, and please definitely do that. If you're on the fence, just fill out your application.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also just application advice, the videos. We do have people who end up submitting applications without the videos, and it really only hurts your chances, because the mentor that's, you know, in between meetings and looking at your application is going to want to get a quick sense of who you are and the idea. And just in case there's for some reason if someone can't see their chat, I thought I would just read off the emails so that you all have them. All of our emails end in @tellurideva.com, just like our website. But so there's Ashley @tellurideva.com, Thea, THEA @tellurideva.com, and myself, Jesse, JESSE @tellurideva.com.
Yeah. Thea, do you have anything else to add before we end here?
You know, just kind of reiterate what you just said, Ash. If you're on the fence, just go ahead and apply. Don't try to second guess things. You know, let us take a look at what you got. And we've been known to be very flexible. We had a company last year that, you know, it was a tough one for us, but it was a tough one for us to not take, and we took them, and they ended up being one of the ones that was funded, you know, right out of the gate. And so, you know, we're just trying to come up with the best companies and the best cohort for you and for us. And so try not to second guess yourself too much on it. Give it to us and let us figure it out. We're pretty flexible with our interpretation of the verticals. We just want to make sure that it's a sweet spot for us that we can really add value.
Yeah, and one feature that can only help you in the application process is you can put updates once you finalize your application.
Right.
And let's say you had some great news or a new hire or something, a major milestone. There is a way to go back in your application and hit and do an update. And if there's confusion on how that works, you can email us again. But it's a great way, as mentors are dynamically reading, to keep them updated on certain news that perhaps is mentioned in your application, or team hires, or certain milestones being achieved.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion.
Yeah. And if you have found that you've submitted your application and you have it finalized and you forgot to do the video, just email me. I can change your status of your application back to edit mode to be able to have your video or whatever other content you would like to have added be added. So just feel free to reach out to me and I can do that pretty quickly.
All right.
All right.
Well, thank you everyone for joining. Hopefully we'll see your applications and we'll be in touch that way. And feel free to reach out.
Perfect. And
thanks everybody.
Great. William, I'll respond to you offline. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.